Hello, and welcome to the Closer's Playbook, a podcast about selling your services as a freelancer. My name's Tyler Poole, and I'm here with my co-host Pete Weber. How you doing today?
Good, Tyler. How you doing?
Good. Today we wanted to talk about sending proposals to your clients. We've talked about some of the precursors to this up till now, but we're going to jump into this pretty detailed topic today. So, Pete, let's start with what should you talk to your client about before you actually send a proposal? What are the key topics to cover?
Yeah, so like I said, we've covered these in others, but for anybody who's just kind of joining, it's not going to really change. It's going to be, what's the business problem that we're trying to solve, right? That doesn't mean, like in your case with search engine optimization, I want to drive this many, more users or views,
Sure.
clicks, things like that. It's what's the reason for driving those, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking to get X number of more customers? What does that mean for your business? Is it because you're falling behind from competitors, or you're trying to move ahead? And so what's the business problem that we're trying to solve for? And then that would kind of be, the main thing that you want to start with.
Okay.
From there, how can you help?
Okay.
Right? So you understand the business problem, then you walk it backwards from there, and you say, all right, here's the problem. How can my services help address that? And then from there, what's that going to take for me to accomplish that for you?
Okay. So discovery questions. Qualifying.
Yep.
Yeah. And what about pricing? Have you already had some sort of pricing discussion before you send them a proposal?
Customers are usually going to push for pricing up front.
Sure.
So they're going to ask. And what I like to say is, hey, let me be really thoughtful about this. Make sure I get everything down, because I'm not going to be able to if I give you a number now, it's not based on all. Yeah. And I might be wrong, but once I get into this, so cool. Let me do this, give me a day, 2 days, whatever you need, right? Sure. To give you this proposal, and I'll have the pricing baked into that. We'll review it.
So the first time they see your pricing is on the proposal. Generally
speaking,
okay.
Cool. That's the time I want to present my pricing.
Cool. So discovery questions, qualifying the customer in or out, stuff we've already talked about. So if you're just hitting us for the first time, go back and listen to those episodes. But now, so what does your proposal look like? What are some key things that you include in every proposal?
Right. So right at the top of the proposal, think about, a Word doc or a sheet or something like that, right? Okay. It's a proposal. So right at the top, I want to have a summary of what we're solving for. So it's that business problem. It's the business need.
Is this like a paragraph?
Yeah, a couple, 3 sentences, something like that, right? You want to be as concise as possible. Do I understand the problem and can put it in few words so that it's clear?
Sure.
And then from there, it's going to be, okay, here's the business problem. Here's how I can address that business problem. Here's how much effort that's going to take, right? Here's the work that's going to be done. So that might be, depending on your business, it could be hours. Maybe you have a package deal that you do, so it's not necessarily hours, but, this is outcome based, maybe milestones that you might want to build into that. So expectations.
Okay.
Here's how I see this going and why my proposal is this long, why it costs this much, right? Again, be as concise as you can, but not so short that it's not understandable.
Sure. Okay. And you said Word document. So sure. Do you send PowerPoints or, whatever slideshow, or do you just stick with a Word document?
If we're reviewing a proposal, any of those slides are probably done already. Like a presentation is really done because you've gotten down to the meat of what the problem is. And you've both, if they're saying, I'd like to get a proposal from you, and you're saying, I'd like to give you a proposal, then we have an idea that you have a solution to my problem already.
Okay, cool. I think that's interesting because in other sales trainings that I've taken in the past, in courses that I've paid for, whatever, there have been some pretty elaborate slideshows that I've seen, and some I think I saw a 28-page pitch deck at one point.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not putting this together for every single customer. I'm sorry. Unless it's a multi-million-dollar account.
Well, and a pitch deck is going to be different than a proposal, in my view, right? So proposal is we've already gone through that whole process. And now we're at the point where we need to be really clear on deliverables.
Mm-hmm.
So outcomes, what's the outcome that you're looking for, the problem that you're solving, and then my deliverables. This is going to establish what the relationship looks like if you choose to hire me as your...
Actually, I'm sorry, I misspoke there. It wasn't, I think it was PowerPoint, not pitch deck, but same, it was a slideshow presentation.
Right, so. Right. I like the document over, whether it's like Google Docs or, Word, whatever. I like that over, and usually in like a PDF. So it's like,
I was going to say, yeah, right. I always save them as PDFs and send them. It's just a tiny bit more professional. But.
Yeah. And it's, unlike a Word doc, you're not like editing it. I mean, there's editing capabilities,
but you don't see the red underlined, whatever.
Yeah.
The Google grammar.
Right. It's so, a little bit more professional. Maybe it has like, it's going to have like a header maybe with your business name on it or whatever. But it's going to be, this is how I see your problem, how I can solve it, and then the expectations of how we're going to work together to solve that together.
How long is your average proposal? Are we talking 4 paragraphs? Are we talking 4 pages?
So I think that a lot of that is going to depend on what services you're offering. There can be some really complex setups. You might have some legal language that needs to be put in it, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing things that are related to like HIPAA, you're going to probably have to have more detail in it. If it's pretty high level, and it might just be services dependent, I would say, as well as again, as concise as it can be, but not too concise. So there's like a happy medium. It's going to be dependent on your vertical. I mean, it's almost like a contract. Mm-hmm. You're saying, here's what we're looking to solve. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's my pricing. Yes or no. Okay.
Do you have a contract that you have them sign afterwards, or is the proposal essentially your contract?
I think, I'm definitely not an attorney. So no legal advice here. But I think you want to have something in writing with them. And if you can, one thing too about getting a signature is if you are working with somebody and they say their decision maker, when you put that proposal in front of them and you go, cool, we need it, that's real. Okay. And so somebody can say yes all the way along verbally. And at the end of the day, they may not have the authority to pull the trigger.
But if you've qualified correctly, you should know if they're the decision maker.
You should, but people don't always.
If you've qualified correctly, you should know.
Yeah, but this can be another form of qualification.
Okay.
So this could be a final check. And maybe they do have the authority, but somebody else needs to sign off on it that they need to put in front. So if that's the case, a nicely written up proposal that's concise, shows understanding of the problem, lays out what you're going to do, how you're going to solve their problem, and then here's the pricing, is going to likely stand out amongst other freelancers who are not taking the effort. It's a template. You have your services, right? So once you're going to refine it over time, the thing you're just going to change pieces based on the customer you're talking about. The executive summary at the top that's defining the business problem is going to be specific to that business. Right. But you're probably going to be over time, you're going to be solving the same problem over and over. So you'll be able to recycle that. Your services, you know what your services are. So there's going to be like a menu essentially of what you have that you can plug into.
Do you break out your services line by line and put a cost by each individual one?
I think that's a good question. I don't know that.
Here, let me give you an example because I actually ran into this a while back. Actually, not too long ago. I sent over a proposal and it had line by line items, and it was for a particular type of SEO. So I said, on page is this, it includes these, put a price. Offsite is this, it includes this price. and they came back to me and said, "Oh, we don't want this, but can we do this instead?" And they nitpicked. They had a dollar amount in mind, and so they were trying to include and exclude services to get to that dollar amount. But the problem that we ran into was that because I broke it out, I made it look like it was optional. But in especially in this form of SEO, actually in all forms of SEO, but you can't like, it's a package deal. Like you can improve, like if I do on-site, that's going to be some improvements, but really to make sure I can rank a website, I need to do all 3 components. Okay. And so like, then all of a sudden now we had I couldn't solve the problem that they had come to me for, because they were trying to axe part of the service package, right? Because they wanted a different price than what I was. So, and that's why it's kind of a key question. It's, or in my mind, it's a key question.
Yeah. It might be something that you could test out, right? You just got some feedback, some data on putting it all line itemed out. It doesn't mean you can't list out the components, but still give like, here's my price for these as a package. So maybe it's in how you package your services. If you know that every time these 3 things, you can still call them out as things that you're doing, but you could say, my package includes all 3 of these things. Sure. And if then when they come back and say, hey, can we get rid of this? You can say, no. If like I put this together, maybe you can do a couple of options in your proposal where you could say, here are my 2 options, or 3, right? You could say, so here's option 1, and this I believe will get us to X. Okay. Right? Total baseline. Then you could have proposal 2 that is like, we can accelerate. So maybe it'll allow us to move faster. Maybe it'll allow us to be bigger. And you could leave it at 2. You could do 3. I know there's a lot of pricing stuff out there, right? Where it's like, how many do you want?
You do the low, the high, and the one you want.
Yeah. Right. Or just, saying, here's your options. It does some price anchoring where it's like, oh, here's the Cadillac, or I don't know if that's still a relevant term, but the Cadillac of my opportunities, and then here's my base down here. Okay. If you want to land somewhere in between, I have a package. You could do something like that, and you could say, well, look, all 3 of these have these 3 components because they're so critical together.
Right. And so instead you change like the timeline in which you deliver.
It could be, I think if you're doing right by the customer, you're going, look, here's the bare minimum for me to do what I need to do to solve that problem. Bare minimum. Right. If you want a little bit more assurance that we can get there a little bit quicker, or you want to be above the bare minimum,
and the funny thing about that is that's a tough thing, because especially with SEO, I can't promise. I can give people a range, like, okay, with this going on 4 to 6 months, we should start to see some movement. We should start to hit the places we want. But I can't tell them, I can't guarantee anything, and no SEO can. And so,
well, and you can even build in there too, like if Google changes their algorithm.
There you go. Yeah, that's
this is dependent on that. So you can set the proposal allows you to set expectations. Do like
500 times a year.
But it's a real thing that affects your industry, 100%, right?
100%.
And so the proposal is kind of it's not necessarily the final. It could be the final. Mm-hmm. But you're setting the expectations, you're laying out your plan for them, and then you're going to have a little bit of a back and forth, probably.
How many times, that brings up a good point. How many times do you normally go back and forth with the client over a proposal before you have like a finished document?
Well, I'm going to tell a customer, like, I'm going to give you first what I believe is going to be the right solution. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is what I believe is going to accomplish what you need. The pricing, I believe, is fair, based on the amount of effort that's going to be needed and what these services cost. And they'll come back and they'll probably say, can you take a little bit off, right? And so you'll have
a discount,
right? Which we talked about in an earlier episode. And so there will be a little back and forth. I think it's going to depend, but I think you want to get to the place where you're like, all right, you asked for X, and here's what I'm offering to deliver X. So where are we still apart? you know, and that's where we get into like in that pricing conversation
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, well, we have had problems right around the 3-month mark with another vendor. Okay, well, should we build an opt-out in?
Yeah.
Right? Or what type of metrics do you want to build into this and check-in points to make sure we're on the right path?
Yeah.
And then what do you, like you could call out at month 1, here's the expectations. At month 2, at month 3, ask them, do you disagree with any of this?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can lay that out and get to an understanding, because most people want to be clear and know like, okay, we have something we're working towards. We have a way to measure that.
Okay.
So that then they can go back to their leadership. If you're selling to a business
Sure.
like that has multiple people, right?
Sure.
Like I know some of the customers you have are larger customers. Some of them are smaller.
Right.
If you've got multiple people that are going to be like, hey,
Sure.
what's going on here? They can lay out clearly, like, we're on track. Look, we agreed. This is where we were. Here's where we're at. We just signed off. We reviewed the numbers. We're on our way.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay. And I thought it was funny while you were saying that. We have shamelessly plugged our earlier episodes multiple times today. Oops.
All builds to
Right.
today.
So, but okay, that makes sense. Anything else you want to talk about with proposal? Any other key points that, that we missed so far?
I think you can go back through a lot of if this is the first time you're jumping into proposals, then you can go back through, think through some of the other deals that you've had, some that you've lost, and go through like, okay, what could I have done differently there? Did I understand the business problem? And then there's templates too. I mean, you could Google proposals.
Sure.
You could, I think
we could probably throw one up on our website if and when it gets.
if
you're listening to this in the future, we will have a website. As of right now,
we're strictly podcast.
Right.
But yeah, there's all sorts of templates. I think the main thing is let's start with what's the problem we're solving, so we're on the same page. Sure. Because when you and we're gonna review this, like I'm not gonna send this over in advance. Typically, I'm gonna say let's jump on and we're gonna review the proposal. Jump on Zoom, WebEx, whatever you use,
sure.
And share your screen and go, all right, I'm not saying this to you because I want to make sure that it's right and that we agree before I send over any proposal.
So how do you get past, this is actually a great question, a great topic, because I generally have a hard time getting people on the phone one time or on Zoom the first time. Getting them on a second time for a walkthrough of proposals can be really difficult. I normally send them a brief email and say, here's the proposal we talked about. Do you have luck with that? Or, I mean, I will say that I have luck with that, but then again, but maybe I could be more successful if I got them back on the phone and walked through with them.
Yeah, what's preventing them from getting back on the phone with you?
You name it. I mean, normal, I'm busy excuses, whatever.
Yeah, I like to just say, I'll have the proposal ready by Friday. Are you available? Is Friday at 1 p.m. a bad time for you to review
so
this?
You like to schedule it at the end of the first call?
Yeah. If you have milestones and next steps that you need to review things, have discussion, hey, let's just look at our calendars real quick. Maybe it's only a 15, like let's carve out 30 minutes, but it'll probably take 10, 15 minutes just for us to run through the proposal, unless there's a lot of questions and we need to make changes.
Yeah.
I want to get that scheduled before the next one. If they're really hesitant to schedule, I mean, sometimes they're like, hey, next week's going to be really crazy. Can we check in? Whatever. Be like, yeah, let's, do we need to do it the week after? If next week's going to be crazy, let's look at the following week. If they're really pushing back on scheduling a meeting, be like, you could even just say, hey, what's preventing you from just putting time on the calendar? That
makes sense. Okay.
Because if they're like, you know what, actually, like, I don't know if this is going to be the right solution. Now you can step back and maybe it's not like, hey, maybe I don't think this is necessarily the best fit.
And now you're qualifying out.
Now you're qualifying.
Plug. Cool. And then we've actually touched on it a couple times. One point, especially for newer freelancers or newer people who haven't sent a ton of proposals.
Yeah.
We've touched on it a couple times. This is an evolving process. I've been doing this for 5 years, and my proposal changes every single time. It evolves every single time. And so especially as a newer freelancer, send something, do something.
Right.
We talked about it earlier today. What is it? Perfection is the enemy of progress, is the sayings or whatever.
Something like that, or good enough, or
right. Yeah. So send it. Put something together, send it. Maybe you don't get any feedback. Maybe you get the client and that's feedback, kinda. Maybe you get somebody, send a proposal.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about follow-up in another episode. I think that's worth some time to dive into. But just pull a template off the internet, or just even put, here's a paragraph on the problem that I see. Here's how I'm going to help solve it. Here's my pricing.
Right. Yep. Pretty simple.
Yeah. So. I think if you're doing, I think a lot of people aren't doing it. Right. Because it takes it's additional steps,
and it's funny because it's not that difficult of a step, but it's one that I think sales professionals in general they make it more complicated than it needs to be.
It can be, yeah. Or you just get behind, and you're like, hey, I've got all this work to do. So when you say you're gonna have it done, make sure you give yourself enough time to have it done.
Well, and if you've done all the discovery if you've done the qualifying, then you and this customer know each other at this point to some extent. You should have some rapport built up. It should be pretty easy to send over a document that says, this is everything we've talked about. Yeah. I want to, touch base with you. I want to review it with you. Let's chat about it.
And again, I'm not going to send it to them. I want to walk through it with them. Right. And if they push back and say, just send it to me, I'm going to say, hey, I don't want to send you a proposal where I misunderstood something. I want to review it with you so that when I send you the proposal, it's final and it's clear.
Yeah. There you go. And that kind of, that almost circles back to the pricing discussion where where we don't directly answer that question.
Right.
So, cool. Anything else you want to cover?
No, I think that's a good place to end it.
Cool. Well, as usual, thank you for listening. Find us on YouTube and all your podcast platforms, and we'll catch you next week.
All right.
See you then. Later, guys. Later, Pete.